Hey guys, I'm Chris Bach and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks. On this week's video, aside from being cast aside to a back room of the house because the builder that is currently out the front, it would appear is trying to recreate the entirety of the soundtrack of World War II ran over. We're going to be taking a look at the new Yamaha THR Mark II and ultimately trying to answer the question, is it worth the hype? So the first clip you're going to see is taken from a video I shot a good few months ago now with the incredible Mr. Pete Thorne at Thomann TGU19 in Germany, Thomann Gearhead University, also the only form of university I've ever been interested in. Basically, when me and Pete ran you through the current kind of major selection, I guess, of home to small use practice amps with the intention of trying to find out which one would come out on top and which one was our favourite. Now, the reason I've included this in this video is this was actually the first time I ever tried a Yamaha THR. Admittedly, it was an older iteration, but I guess the principle stands. You can see how good it sounded in the room, and also my first kind of real-time experiences and impressions.
THR-V version 2, and this is the one we're going to hear first. Great.
Now, as I said, that was an older version of the THR, but it coloured me sufficiently intrigued to set about trying to get hold of one. So here I am now, a few months later, with the new Mark II THR30, the 30-watt version. Basically, as I said, to try and get to the bottom of whether I found any practical applications for this, whether it has inspired me to play around the house as I kind of hoped it would do. And ultimately, I guess, the most important bit of information for any bit of musical gear is how it sounds. Now, the first thing I noticed upon taking this out of the box is that the new version actually has the capacity for presets. Now, if I'm entirely honest, I was a little bit skeptical as to how much use I would actually get out of those. I guess part of the fun of a practice amp like this, or a kind of home use amp, is having the capacity to just open it up and dial in a tone that makes you feel inspired there and then. However, that said, the capacity to actually deep dive into this with the app or the kind of software that Yamaha provide really has made the presets an invaluable experience. I've dialed in 3, which I'm going to run you through in due course of this video. But basically, it's just meant that if I'm using this in a capacity where I haven't really got that much time to be trying to dial in a sound that I find particularly inspiring, i.e. if I'm running through something in a dressing room very quickly before a show, or I'm at a kind of quick acoustic rehearsal, having the capacity to just press a button and get up a sound that I know sounds somewhere in the ballpark of what I'm looking for has proved incredibly invaluable. As I said, the capacity to actually dive in with the app as well and adjust things that you can't actually access from the top panel. Although I guess that could be construed as a downside, I guess on the plus side it does mean that you're not really going to suffer from option paralysis if you're just looking at dialing a quick sound. But if you are looking to really kind of deep dive on maybe the tone of the reverb or the tap tempo of the delay, obviously there is a tap tempo button on top of the THR as well, but a whole host, a kind of myriad of things that you can't access from the top panel, having the app and the presets is incredibly helpful. Now, in regard to other features, obviously we have the stereo out on the back of the THR, as well as a USB. Now, that's what you're going to be actually hearing when I do the up close and personal videos a little bit later on. But also we have an auxiliary in, we've got headphones out, but also really interestingly, we actually have Bluetooth. Now, I would be lying if I said I'd been using this probably in the capacity that it was intended. Primarily been using it to listen to audiobooks from my phone or music and stuff like that. But obviously, I guess the infinitely more practical application in that respect is to be able to play backing tracks through it, or maybe your favourite tracks that you just want to jam along to, and then having independent volume controls also for the audio level as well as the guitar level is really a very cool feature and gives you a kind of a very immersive experience, I guess. You can sort of either bury yourself in the mix if you're maybe not that confident on what it sounds like, or maybe put yourself a little bit more prominent and really isolate any mistakes that you're making. As I said, if I was using this at the point where I was kind of very much in the learning phase, as much as we all still very much are, that would be invaluable and would save me faffing around to all the faffing around that I did with hi-fis and iPods and auxiliary leads and all that kind of stuff. Very, very cool feature. Lastly, in terms of features, it's also worth touching upon the fact that this new version actually has all of the old iterations of the THR rolled into one. It was a very common criticism of the older versions, is that if you wanted the high gain version, or you wanted the boutique version, or you wanted the classic version, you had to buy 3 separate amps. They've put that as a toggleable, is that a word? It is now, option on the top of this amp, and again, I've actually utilised all of those to some extent in the presets that I've dialed in, so that's a very cool feature. Now, features aside, I guess the most important bit of kind of information for any bit of musical gear, whatever it is how does it sound? Now, as I said, it's really impressed me in how much it has actually inspired me to practice. I'm a little bit lazy when it comes to actually kind of picking up a guitar and practicing for the sake of practice. I guess part of the downside of being a professional musician in any capacity is that I tend to spend a lot of my day with a guitar in my hands. And I guess that is practice in some respect, but when it comes to actually picking it up and kind of working on something that I really want to work through, I'm a little bit lazy. It's the kind of lack of inspiration or impetus to do it when you spend most of the day with the guitar in your hands anyway. And if that then entails having to rig up the helix and the power cab or my full rig and a pedal board, it's just a pain in the behind, to be honest. So having this on hand with a couple of cool sounds already dialed into it has really meant that I've just found myself practicing that a little bit more. And the fact that it then sounds so good and acts in a very kind of amp-like way is very cool. In a sound clip I'm going to play you now, hopefully you'll see that it cleans up really nicely. There's a fair amount of gain on this preset, but dialing your volume back on the guitar gives it that kind of very amp-like sort of control of your sound, I guess. And again, if it wasn't for the fact that I knew the orange glow coming from the front of the amp wasn't from a valve, I would probably believe otherwise. Now for the cynics amongst you, of course I do a lot of work with Yamaha, so I guess caveat emptor in that respect. If you choose to disregard everything I have or I'm about to say with a pinch of salt, that is entirely your prerogative. But as I've also said on previous occasions, I don't do videos or demos or reviews of bits of gear that I don't like. So the fact that I'm sat here at all is testament how incredibly impressed I've been with this. Also worth mentioning that as much as I guess doing a USB recording or stereo out on the back does give you a kind of overall impression of how it sounds, actually being in the room with this is an entirely different experience. A lot of the videos you see of the THR where it's mic'd up for the recording is actually with two microphones on the front, and the reason for that is it is actually in stereo. So sitting in front of this amp in your bedroom or in your office or wherever in your lounge, again, is an entirely different experience to what you're going to be hearing on the USB recording. But I guess that's a key part of it. A key fundamental part is actually being able to take it out from this and maybe reamp it if you wanted to. There's actually a flat voicing on the front. You can turn the cab sim off if you wanted to use an IR of your own choice through third-party software. It's just a whole host of stuff on this, which is an incredibly impressive feature set for, I guess, not that much money, all things considered. It's a fairly good chunk of wedge, but considering what you're getting for the money and how good that sounds, I would argue that is very much money well spent, I should say. As regard to any criticisms or negatives I have, I would be very reticent, to be honest, to use the word negative, as I really don't think there's anything that I would personally add to this amp. But a couple of common criticisms I've read is that there's no cab out. I'm not sure whether that's actually a possibility with such an amp. Obviously, we've got the stereo out if you wanted to run it to front of house or a mixing desk or into a kind of external monitor. But I guess having the capacity to actually run a 4x12 or a 2x12 even off this would be amazing. But whether that's actually a possibility or not, I don't know. It would be cool, I guess, to have a foot switch to be able to toggle through the presets, but again, I would say that's probably alluding to a live functionality or a live capability, which I probably wouldn't use this for. It's definitely not loud enough to get over the level of a loud drummer, so I'm not going to be using it live in that respect, but I really don't think that's what it's intended for. And lastly, I guess it would be cool to maybe have the functionality of a looper built in. That would be very cool, but again, I guess that would entail some level of foot switching, which would only kind of add to the price. So in that respect, it's not really missing anything that I would call integral. So there you have it. Hopefully that's given you a little bit of a general overview of how good this thing actually does sound. And as I said, I guess the proof is in the pudding, and the fact that I found myself playing infinitely more guitar around the house and actually practicing, is testament to how good and inspiring this thing sounds. Obviously runs off a battery as well, so if you're looking to take this out busking, it would be a very good application for it. And also if you're using the Line 6 GT10 relay, you can actually use this wirelessly as well. There's a whole host of applications for this, which I would argue are very inspiring. And as I said, in the few weeks that I've had this now, I've got a hell of a lot of use out of it. So that, I guess, is all you need to know in that respect. So as ever, thank you very much for watching. This has been Friday Fretworks. I shall see you next week for another episode. Cheers, guys. Take care, and I shall see you soon.